You guys aren't gonna believe this one. Someone I know did a thesis report on the psychology of Rise of Kingdoms, and the results are going to blow you away. Stick around to learn more. So, if you're anything like me, you're wondering, why would anyone want to do a thesis report on Rise of Kingdoms? But it actually turns out that Rise of Kingdoms is a really good candidate for trying to understand why people spend money in games like Rise of Kingdoms and other mobile games. The foundational questions that this research proposed to answer was, what are the motivational factors behind spending in Rise of Kingdoms, and how important are these factors to different players? Because everyone spends a little bit differently, and statistically, about 99% of players don't spend, but the 1% that do spend quite a bit. So today we're going to dive into this research study on the psychology of spending in Rise of Kingdoms and learn more about what this guy found as part of his thesis. Now, when we talk about spending in Rise of Kingdoms, there are a few different things that tend to come up as core competencies and reasons as to why someone might want to spend on this game. Obviously, they spend because it's fun, but there were three core areas that were looked at as part of the study. The first one, which was competence. Competence is an intrinsic need whereby people can derive great satisfaction from a sense of achievement. In other words, the more you spend, the more successful you'll be in the game, in theory. The second is relatedness, or belonging, which is a fundamental human motivation that has strong effects on emotional patterns and cognitive processes. In Rise of Kingdoms, this is more akin to not letting your kingdom or your alliance down. You want to make sure that you're supporting everyone and that you are a contributing member of the team. And the third factor is autonomy. Autonomy is about having the control about what you do in the game. The more you spend, the more you have the ability to be a rally and garrison player or a field player, or have the control over where you are in terms of different kingdoms. That's major factors as to why people spend in this game, and it was what this guy looked at as he asked a bunch of different interviewees why they spent on the game. Now, one thing that was especially interesting here is that he found that a lot of players don't come into Rise of Kingdoms thinking that they're going to spend money. But Lilith does a really good job of a couple different things. The first is the perceived value of the different things that you're purchasing. For example, if you spend $5, you can get close to 2,000 gems in some cases. That has a lot of perceived in-game value, right? You could do a lot with those gems. You could get more gold heads, you can make an impact, and not only that, but a lot of the time people will see these purchases as a means to an end. Well, I have to purchase Minamoto because I'm going to be a rally lead early on in the game. Or, well, I'm a garrison commander, I have to purchase gold heads for the latest garrison commander release. And this is one of the key aspects as to why people are buying things early on in the game, and how Lilith manages to trap you and get you from going free to play to spending thousands of dollars in the game. Now, as with any good study, this one began with a couple of very important questions. First off, there were 8 interviewees that were asked these questions. 4 were experts in Rise of Kingdoms, including content creators, whales that you know and love, and 4 were novices, players that you may just find playing the game who've played for a number of years, but who wouldn't be considered to be experts. The first question that these people were asked were, why do you spend money in Rise of Kingdoms? A straightforward question. I'm sure you guys could let me know in the comment section why you feel that you spend. But what was interesting was he was able to tie all of these different answers into one cohesive notion, which we'll be getting to. The next question was, what do you buy in Rise of Kingdoms, and what makes you buy that specifically? And this is one that I found to be really interesting, because I think that the different players in the game tend to buy different things. As you can see, we have all these different bundles available to us. You have the special bundle, you have super value, you have daily special offer, you have supply depot. Everyone buys different things in the game, and a lot of it depends upon who they are and what they're actually spending for in this game, which really makes things pretty interesting when you look across these different personas. We then also get into Do we think that spending money is the best way to progress in Rise of Kingdoms? I think there are a lot of people with differing opinions on this. And the best basis for this is actually taking a look at KVK 2 and KVK 1 versus all those players that are continuing to migrate back, which is the bane of the existence for these early game kingdoms. Because what you end up seeing is there's an interesting matrix where you have players that spend a lot of time in the game and don't spend very much versus players that have spent thousands of dollars in the game but haven't been playing for that long. And this is a really interesting question depending upon where you are in the game and who you're playing against. I think if you are in an older kingdom and you spend more money than your peers, you should be more successful. However, if you are in a younger kingdom and you are older than your peers, then things get very interesting. Now, the third question was, is your kingdom winning a KVK more important than the strength of your account? And this one is the farmer versus fighter question. It's a big one because what you often see is players will migrate from kingdom to kingdom. And so winning KVK, if your account can grow, sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't. And do kingdom rankings influence your desire to spend/progress? And this also varies. If you guys saw my recent video on the top right side of your screen now, where I talk about why I left 1079, you'll actually start to understand that these rankings and power rankings do have a real impact on how much people spend, right? Because if you want to get more kills, guess what? You probably need to spend more money on crystal tech. So that also really contributes. Now, the other thing is, what do you think of Kraken accounts with hundreds of millions of power? And this is a really timely question because recently Baba, I believe, just lost another KVK. But Baba has over 1 billion power in Rise of Kingdoms. How much is he actually using? And is it actually any value to the kingdoms that he's in? Could he contribute more as someone who is just 200 million power or even 115 million power? That's a very valid question. And the list goes on, but overall, these questions really tried to get to the core point of how does your spending as an individual tend to contribute to your kingdom, and are different spending levels within kingdoms more impactful for you as a player? For example, would you prefer a high spending kingdom with a bad community or a low spending kingdom with a good community? Community is a huge portion of Rise of Kingdoms. So all of these questions are geared towards getting those same answers around why are you spending in Rise of Kingdoms and why do you continue to spend time after time? So now that we've gone through all of the different interview questions, let's talk about some of the answers that were found. A consensus was reached within all 8 interviews that the community, the alliances you're in, the friends you have in game are a huge driving factor for spending in Rise of Kingdoms. And this is especially salient whether you're an expert or a casual player. Gold chests reward the entire alliance. But more importantly, if your rally and garrison leads aren't spending money on the game, then the whole kingdom is going to suffer as a consequence. And this was interesting because although the community is valued by all participants, the pressure to spend was greater among the expert group, those that have been playing for a long time and know more, with their strength equating to greater expectations. And this is especially interesting when we think about how we rank someone as a fighter or a farmer. The longer you play, the more kill points you're expected to have, the more knowledge you're supposed to have about the game. So this was really interesting. Now, there were nuances within the responses, whereby a participant expressed their distaste with community and pros pressure, but they still ended up spending money as a consequence of it. So this is especially salient in really big kingdoms. You kind of have to spend if you want to stay, but if you have friends there, then you also want to stay, so it gets complicated. Now, there were also some findings around personal goals. There was a direct correlation that can be found across all interviews between personal goals and spending level, and this is heavily influenced by community expectations. The casual group have smaller personal goals. If I'm just picking up the game for fun, then it doesn't matter quite as much how well I do in the game. But if you're an expert, you have larger goals. I want to have 10 billion kill points. that means you're probably going to end up spending more money, and there's an expectation from the community that you're going to be spending more money. And this can also be affected by your power level in game. The higher the power you have, the more kills you're expected to get. And last but not least, autonomy. Autonomy was valued by both groups, the experts and the non-experts, but it was much higher valued by the casual group because autonomy is essential and easily obtainable for the expert group through spending, right? If I want to leave my kingdom, I'll just buy some passports and migrates. If I want to be a field player, I'll just buy the equipment that I need. However, if you are a casual player, these things are much harder to come by and therefore much more valuable. There also was a big question around sunk cost, and this is one of the number one reasons why I think players don't quit Rise of Kingdoms. Because, let's be honest, I've already put so much into my account. I have a whole video where I break down how much I've spent. You can check that out on the top right if you'd like. But this is a thing that a lot of people run into, because if you're a rally and garrison lead and you built your account as a rally and garrison lead, you can't stop spending and not become a rally and garrison lead anymore. You're going to have to completely re-architect your account, which is what I've actually been having to do. The other thing is, if you do try and sell your account, which I don't condone, but if you do try to sell your account, realistically, you're maybe going to get 1/10 of the value that you've put in, and so you're kind of stuck. You can either buy that Writer of History bundle, or you can miss it and have to get your gold heads other ways. So to answer the big question that you're probably all wondering of why am I spending in Rise of Kingdoms, the answer really comes down to a handful of variables. One, you kind of have to if you have already started spending. Once you start, it's really hard to stop spending, especially as we talk about maintaining different accounts. The other thing is your community, right? If you need to be in 60 GT, you have to spend. That's how you stay in the community, and that's how you go through the process of investing in your account. If you choose not to buy Crystal Tech, you can't stay. Now, the other thing is control. If you want to leave your kingdom, you have to buy passports. Sure, you could use individual credits or alliance credits, but it's not always that straightforward. And if you're a whale, it has to be even more expensive. So that's why people tend to spend more on things like that. But the number one reason that people are spending in Rise of Kingdoms is because Lilith rewards you. Every time someone spends money in Rise of Kingdoms, there is some sort of transparent reward. As you can see right now, we have a chest available. Why do we have a chest available? Probably because people spend money on this game. And you can also see how much everyone is spending. So not only are you getting individually rewarded by the things that you buy, right? You can see everything that you're getting when you make a purchase, but you're also rewarding your peers, which is feeding back into that community delivering of value. And so essentially, Lilith has done a phenomenal job of monetizing this game. And as they continue to release new commanders and new functionalities such as armaments and equipment and iconic, they are incentivizing you to continue spending on this game. And you're not going to stop because guess what? You've already put thousands of dollars in. And if you stop, what was it all for? And you're not going to sell your account because maybe you'll get 1/10 of the value for it. So overall, this has been a really interesting study for me. I was thrilled to be part of it, and I wanted to share this with you. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I know this is a different kind of video, but if you've enjoyed it, be sure to hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right-hand corner, and hit the bell so you get notified when new episodes come out. Thank you all. Shappy out.